History came to life last week at the Marlborough Public Library as the Marlborough Revolution 250 Committee presented the final installment of its Timeline to Independence exhibit. Featuring incredible artifacts from the American Revolution, this showcase gave visitors a rare glimpse into the nation's fight for freedom.
I guess the highlight of this session would be we have a Peter Force engraving of the Declaration of Independence. The original copies were ordered by John Quincy Adams for the 50th anniversary of the signing, and they were printed up on vellum for heroes of the Revolutionary War, famous politicians, etc. 200 copies. And then 5 years later, Peter Force was putting out an edition of documents from the American Revolution, and he got permission from the Treasury to run off maybe 500 more copies. And those were put in books, and some people are lucky enough to find a copy of the book with the Declaration in it and get them framed and preserved. We were lucky enough to find one, and we put that as the highlight.
Another standout piece was a rare first American edition of John Trumbull's The Death of General Warren at Bunker Hill, engraved by John Norman in 1789.
It's very interesting. It was done by a map maker, engraved by a map maker named John Norman, and it's not as nice as the later European copies. 1789, it was so big when it was engraved that they had to glue two pieces of paper together to engrave it. You can see a little tiny line down the middle of the engraving. We also have a bunch of other John Warren artifacts, I guess, and documents. For example, he delivered the 1775 Boston oration on the Boston Massacre, and he had delivered one a few years before, but in 1775 they knew the war was about to begin, so that he really practiced for it. When he was in college, he had a favorite play that he liked by Joseph Addison called Cato, and it was George Washington's favorite play too. And Cato was a Roman patriot who rose up against Julius Caesar. And when Caesar was about to capture him, he offered him freedom, and he said he would rather die on his feet than die groveling to a tyrant. And that's pretty much the way Warren believed in himself. He showed up at the Old South Church to deliver the oration, and people were kind of mystified because he walked across the street to a shop and entered the shop rather than the church. In a few minutes he came out, he was wearing a Roman toga. He was Cato for the night. And then 3 months later, he was killed at the Battle of Bunker Hill.
The exhibit also included facsimiles of Amos Doolittle's engravings of the battles of Lexington and Concord. Reproductions made using a rare 19th century process that captures every detail of the originals.
What they did was they had a process where they would take the originals and lay a layer of gel over it. And the gel would sink into the original engraving marks. And then when they lifted the gel off, it would harden, and it was just like having an engraving block. And they engraved, I think they did 200 sets of it, and then they had them all hand-painted to match the original faded painting on the ones that were done in Connecticut. And you used to be able to buy these for not much money in Boston in the 60s, but now they cost almost $1,000 if you can find them. So I've only seen one copy in like maybe 30 years for sale.
One of the most significant documents on display, a commission signed by Samuel Adams, issued while Boston was under siege and the Massachusetts government operated from Watertown.
We have an actual portrait of Earl Percy. Earl Percy was a general in Boston under General Gates, and when they heard in Boston that the retreat of the British from Concord and Lexington was disastrous and they were all going to be wiped out, he had to take a column out from Boston, and it showed up very late because I think there was a 4-hour delay or something, but he brought 2 cannons with him. So once the Patriots saw the cannons, they backed off, and there's this idea that some of them were trying to fire on the British from 800 yards away with a musket. So, but it allowed the British to get back to Boston at that point. So I figured there might be some reenactors showing up who are going to do the Battle Road. Well, I just wanted to show them what they were going to run into on the way home. So.
The exhibit also explored America's use of privateers during the war, displaying rare letters of marque, which were licenses to legally raid British ships. A letter from the famous privateer John Manley even thanked a supplier for sending grape shot for battle. Among the personal accounts, a collection of letters from the Siege of Boston, written by a Connecticut soldier to his wife. One letter, dated June 16, 1775, captured life on the eve of the Battle of Bunker Hill.
And the first one, he's saying, oh, some of our guys went down fishing yesterday and they captured a whole bunch of British sailboats that were doing the same thing without firing a shot. So he's kind of proud of that. And then he says, what's the next thing? He says, oh, by the way, he says, I'm staying in Cambridge at the beautiful home of the Son of Liberty, and I'm very well satisfied. And then the last paragraph is, I love you dearly, please send me a pair of white socks. Yeah. And the next one is June 16th, 1775, the day before the Battle of Bunker Hill. And his people took part in the Battle of Bunker Hill. And he says he doesn't know what's going on. Evidently, they haven't told him yet. And he's an officer, so he kind of should know. But I guess they kept it secret because they set up all the fortifications on Bunker Hill that night. Big, huge fort. And then he's saying, I know something's going on, but I don't know what it is yet. When I find out, I'll let you know. Then the next letter is to his wife, and it's the 22nd, I think. And he hasn't had time to write to her in between, but he tells her, okay, we were in this big battle. He doesn't say Bunker Hill or whatever. And a bunch of the guys were wounded, but they're okay. We didn't lose any people, none did. And he just said, I love you, so forth and so on. And then he finally says, thank you for the socks. And then the next one is a letter from his wife. And the wife says, I'm glad you got the socks and you're okay.
With this exhibit concluding the pre-1776 timeline, the Marlborough Revolution 250 Committee is already looking ahead. Next year, they'll continue the story from the Declaration of Independence through the war's end in 1783. For now, visitors walk away with a deeper appreciation of the sacrifices made for America's independence, one artifact at a time. For WMCT, I'm Matt Bisaccio.